So what are you actually paying for when the price jumps from $30 to $300? Is it age? Is it rarity? Is it a distillery spending more on marketing than barrels? We are about to walk through 7 price tiers, from budget to luxury, and answer the only question that matters. What actually improves as you spend more? And what is just expensive theater? One of these tiers delivers world-class complexity for under $100 and will make you question whether you ever need to climb higher. By the time we reach the top, you will understand why some bottles cost as much as a mortgage payment, and whether that price reflects the liquid or just the story someone wants you to believe. Let us find out which one. Tier 1. The entry gate, $20 to $30. This is where most people start, and where Scotch whiskey law draws the line between legal and illegal. Every bottle here must be distilled in Scotland below 94.8% alcohol by volume, so the liquid retains flavor. It must age for a minimum of 3 years in oak casks. It must be bottled at 40% alcohol by volume or higher. That is the floor. Nothing in this tier goes much beyond it. You are looking at Johnnie Walker Black Label 12-year at around $28 and Monkey Shoulder Blended Malt at around $32. Both are blends. Black Label mixes malt whiskey with grain whiskey to stretch volume. Grain whiskey is cheaper to produce because it uses column stills and any cereal grain, not just malted barley. Monkey Shoulder blends 3 Speyside single malts, but avoids listing an age statement because the youngest whiskey in the bottle determines what you can print on the label. At this price, the game is volume and consistency. These bottles taste the same today as they did 10 years ago because industrial quality control leaves no room for variation. The whiskey is fine. It will not offend anyone at a dinner party. It will not impress anyone who has tasted past this tier. You are paying for safety. The vanilla is there, but it is thin. The smoke is faint, if present at all. The finish disappears faster than the pour. If you add ice, it gets watery. If you add water, it gets more watery. This is Scotch with training wheels. It teaches you the category exists, but not what the category can do. Think of it like learning piano on a keyboard with weighted keys. It gets you started, but it does not show you what a Steinway Grand can do in the hands of someone who knows how to play. Tier 2. The Daily Dram, $35 to $50. This is where single malts enter the conversation. You are looking at Glenlivet 12-year at around $40 and Highland Park 12-year Viking Honor at around $48. Both carry 12-year age statements, which means every drop in the bottle sat in oak for at least 12 years. That costs time and money. Glenlivet 12 is from Speyside. It is light, floral, and orchard fruit forward. Green apple, pear, a hint of citrus, and a whisper of vanilla from ex-bourbon casks. It is the single malt people buy when they want to say they drink single malt but do not want peat smoke punching them in the face. Highland Park 12 is from the Orkney Islands. It has gentle smoke, heather honey sweetness, and a slight maritime salinity that reminds you the distillery sits on an island surrounded by cold North Sea water. Both are chill filtered to 40% ABV, so they stay clear when you add ice. The clarity comes at a cost. Chill filtration strips texture. The whiskey feels thinner on the palate than it should. The flavors are there, but they do not coat your mouth. They pass through and leave quickly. But this tier teaches you something Tier 1 does not. Regional character. Speyside tastes different than island whiskey. The distillery matters. The location matters. The barrels matter. You start noticing that Scotch is not one thing. It is 5 legally protected regions and hundreds of distilleries, each doing something slightly different. This is where casual drinkers park permanently. The whiskey is good enough to sip, neat and cheap enough to mix if you want. You will find both bottles in almost every bar in America. Reliability has value, but reliability also has a ceiling. Tier 3, the stepping stone, $55 to $75. This is where Scotch stops being polite. You are looking at Talisker 10-year at around $65 and Springbank 10-year at around $70. Talisker is from the Isle of Skye. It is coastal, briny, peppery, lightly peated. You taste the sea in the glass, not as a background note, as a primary character. The smoke is not Islay peat bomb levels, but it is present and it does not apologize. Black pepper heat hits mid-palate. The whiskey is bottled at 45.8% ABV, which gives it weight and heat that 40% cannot deliver. Springbank is from Campbelltown, one of the smallest Scotch regions and one of the most interesting. This distillery is one of the last family-owned operations in Scotland. They malt their own barley on site. They distill it. They bottle it. Everything happens in Campbelltown. Springbank 10 is lightly peated, oily in texture, slightly funky in the way that only Campbelltown whiskey gets funky. Some people describe it as coastal. Some say farmyard. Some say it tastes like the distillery itself. It is bottled at 46% without chill filtration. That means the whiskey can go cloudy when you add ice, and nobody cares because the texture is intact. The mouthfeel is thick, the finish clings. This tier teaches you that proof matters and production choices matter. A distillery that controls its own process makes whiskey that tastes like nowhere else. You are not paying for a committee blend designed to offend nobody. You're paying for a point of view. The finish lingers. The flavors evolve in the glass. If you go back to Tier 2 after spending time here, you will notice how much thinner those whiskeys feel. That is not snobbery. That is pattern recognition. One of these distilleries makes something that costs 6 times as much. Remember that. Tier 4, the confident choice, $80 to $110. This is the golden zone. You are looking at Ardbeg Uigia Dail at around $90 and Balvenie Doublewood 17-year at around $105. Ardbeg Uigadale is an Islay peat monster with no age statement on the label, but it tastes older than many 15-year expressions. It is a marriage of ex-bourbon and ex-sherry casks, bottled at 54.2%. The peat smoke is massive, not subtle coastal brine. Full campfire, iodine, tar, dark chocolate, and dried fruit from the sherry influence. The nose alone is an experience. You can smell it from across the room. The palate is dense, chewy, the kind of whiskey that makes you slow down and pay attention, because there is too much happening to rush through it. The high proof means you can add water and unlock new layers without killing the whiskey. A few drops open up raisin, espresso, and leather. This is what happens when a distillery focuses on cask selection instead of chasing age statements. Balvenie Doublewood 17 is from Speyside. It is aged in ex-bourbon casks for 14 years, then finished in ex-sherry casks for another 3 years before bottling. The result is honey, dried fruit, toasted oak, baking spice, and a richness that makes most 12-year whiskeys taste like they were bottled too early. 17 years in Scotland is not the same as 17 years in Kentucky. Cool climate maturation is slow, patient. The angel share evaporation rate is lower, so the distillery keeps more whiskey, but it takes longer to develop the complexity. Both of these bottles drink well above their cost. This is where Scotch stops apologizing and starts flexing. You do not need to enter Tier 5 to experience world-class complexity. Many experienced drinkers park here permanently because the next tier delivers diminishing returns per dollar. This is not a compromise tier. This is a destination. If someone tells you that you need to spend $200 to taste great Scotch, they either have not tried these, or they are selling you the $200 bottle. If you are getting value out of this, subscribe now. We put out honest breakdowns every week that will save you money and upgrade your glass. No sponsorships, no affiliate codes, just the truth about what is worth your cash and what is expensive marketing. Hit subscribe and let us keep going. Tier 5. The serious statement. $120 to $180. You are looking at Lagavulin, 16-year at around $130, and Glendronach 18-year Allardyce at around $160. Lagavulin 16 is Islay. Heavy peat smoke, maritime salt, iodine, leather, and a sweetness underneath from ex-sherry and ex-bourbon casks. 16 years of island aging gives the smoke time to integrate instead of dominate. The peat does not scream at you, it surrounds you. The whiskey is bottled at 43%, which is restrained for Islay, but the flavor density does not need higher proof to make an impact. This is the bottle people buy when they want to impress someone who knows whiskey. It has name recognition, and the liquid backs it up. Every sip feels deliberate, measured, like the distillery knew exactly when to stop, aging, and bottle. Glendronach 18 is a Speyside sherry bomb, aged exclusively in Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. Dark dried fruit, chocolate, espresso, Christmas cake, and a richness that coats your mouth and refuses to leave. The distillery was bought by Brown-Forman in 2021, but this whiskey reflects the older regime, when Glendronach was known for prioritizing sherry cask quality over profit margins. 18 years of sherry cask influence does not just add flavor. It transforms the spirit into something that barely resembles the new make that went into the barrel. At this tier, you are paying for time. 18 years in Scotland means the distillery held that whiskey instead of selling it younger. Every year in the cask is inventory cost, evaporation loss, and opportunity cost. The jump from Tier 4 to Tier 5 is not just about age. It is about scarcity. A 10-year whiskey can be produced in 10 years. A 16 or 18-year whiskey requires a distillery to plan almost 2 decades in advance and hope the market still wants it when it is ready. Some of that cost is real. Some of it is brand markup. The liquid is excellent, but you are starting to pay for the story as much as the glass. Tier 6, the collector shelf, $200 to $350. You are looking at Talisker 25-year at around $300, and Highland Park 18-year Viking Pride at around $220 if you can find it. Remember Talisker 10 from $70 ago? This is the same distillery. Same stills, same Isle of Skye, same phenolic peat and maritime brine. The only difference is 15 more years in oak and 5 times the price. That is not a markup. That is compound interest on wood and time. 25 years of aging smooths the pepper, deepens the smoke, and adds layers of dried fruit and oak spice that do not exist in the younger expression. The brine is still there, but it is wrapped in vanilla, caramel, and dark chocolate. The finish lasts minutes instead of seconds. You take a sip, and you are still tasting it 5 minutes later while you are thinking about the next sip. Highland Park 18 is another step up from the 12-year in Tier 2. Deeper honey, more pronounced sherry influence, fuller body, longer finish. The whiskey is excellent, but here is the reality. This tier faces allocation and regional scarcity. These are not everyday shelf bottles. You find them when you find them. The quality is undeniable, but the value calculation shifts. You are no longer asking, does this taste great? You are asking, does this taste twice as great as Tier 5? For most palates, the answer is no. The improvements are real, but they are incremental. The difference between Tier 2 and Tier 4 is a canyon. The difference between Tier 5 and Tier 6 is a step. A noticeable step if you are paying attention, but a step. This is where enthusiasts and collectors split. Enthusiasts stay in Tier 4 and 5. Collectors climb higher because rarity and completionism drive the decision more than flavor. Tier 7. The luxury frontier, $400 and up. You are looking at Springbank 21-year-old at around $500 and Ardbeg 25-year-old at around $850 if you can locate a bottle. Springbank again. Same family-owned distillery from Tier 3. Same independence, same control over every step of production. 21 years instead of 10. The price jumped from $70 to $500 because they held this whiskey for over 2 decades, while every accountant in Scotland told them to bottle it younger. The liquid is stunning, complex, layered, balanced in a way that only time and patient cask management deliver. The peat is gentle now. The funk has matured into leather and tobacco. The oiliness remains, but it carries dried apricot, toffee, old oak. But you are paying for philosophy as much as flavor. A family business that refuses to chase volume. Ardbeg 25 is even rarer. 2.5 decades of aging on Islay. The peat is still there, but it is integrated into a structure of dark fruit, leather, tobacco, and oak that younger Ardbegs cannot touch. The smoke does not announce itself. It reveals itself slowly across the palate, like a secret the whiskey waited 25 years to tell you. The whiskey is a masterpiece. The price is mathematics. Every year that whiskey sits in a cask is a year the distillery does not get paid. Evaporation takes its cut. The angel share in Scotland is about 2% per year. Over 25 years, you lose nearly half the volume. A cask that started with 500 liters ends with 260 liters. You are not just paying for age. You are paying for the whiskey that evaporated. You're paying for the whiskey the distillery could have sold 15 years ago but chose not to. This tier exists for people who want to taste what happens when a distillery holds liquid longer than most careers. The quality is extraordinary, but the value proposition collapses. You are spending 4 to 8 times more than Tier 5 for whiskey that is 10 to 20% better. That math only makes sense if money is not the question. So what actually improves as you climb the price ladder? Age when it is real. Proof when it is higher than the legal minimum. Cask quality when the distillery prioritizes flavor over volume. Production philosophy when family ownership or independent operation means slower decisions and longer timelines. Regional character when the distillery has a clear point of view rather than a focus group. What does not improve? Packaging, marketing, brand recognition, prestige. Those cost money, but they do not taste like anything. Here is the strategy. If you are new to Scotch, start in Tier 2. Learn the regions. Figure out if you like peat or prefer fruit-forward Speyside. If you want to drink great whiskey without spending rent money, live in Tier 4. That is where value and quality intersect, before rarity premiums take over. If you have the budget and want to experience what aged Scotch can do, Tier 5 is the ceiling where quality gains justify cost. Beyond that, you are collecting experiences, not chasing value. Tier 6 and Tier 7 are for enthusiasts who already know what they like and want to taste the outer limits. The whiskey is exceptional, but it stops being about whether you should buy it and starts being about whether you want to. Most people never need to leave Tier 4. That is not settling. That is knowing where the sweet spot lives and refusing to let anyone convince you that more expensive automatically means better.